For the bare necessities, the simple bare necessities.
Hello and welcome to episode 117 of That's a Shame. I'm Isaac, and joining me just there in the unorthodox recording venue, to be sure, it's Declan D. Lane. How's it going?
It's going all right, thank you.
You've got 3 different drinks on the go. Now, that's an interesting strategy. Expecting this to be a long one.
I am just trying really anything to keep me awake.
Ah, okay. Explain
It's
why.
been quite a while.
It's not because you're bored by doing the show.
No,
Quite the opposite.
already by the 30-second mark.
Wow. Commitment dwindling over the year.
It's made up for by our devoted listeners in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Is that
God,
the
yeah,
one?
we should talk about that. So, I don't know if you know this, guys, but you're in the company now of officially the 71st funniest podcast in the whole Democratic Republic of the Congo. So, shout out to all of our Congolese listeners. I mean, it's great to have you on board. tass@shame.city. Tell us what's going on.
Yeah, get in touch. I didn't know we had any.
I can only assume that we've started a movement over there, and like Isaac and Declan are kind of political figures.
I think before we start claiming
To have
any
started
Congolese movements, we should check out exactly what they are.
No, but I imagine that the particular listenership that we have in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, they're going to be tuned in, clued up, ready for action.
Yeah.
And yeah, welcome aboard, all of you.
But yeah, I'm weary, not tired.
World weary.
I think. I've been up for about 32 hours now.
Oh, okay.
Because I did an overnight shift, and then working as a runner, and then I had to tutor, but there wasn't enough time to actually come home and get any meaningful sleep. So I just drove to the tutoring and slept in the car, like in broad
How far
daylight.
away from the tutoring did you sleep? Because if I was walking home from anywhere
15
and
yards.
saw my darling progeny's tutor asleep in a car
Under that dog blanket, of
under
course.
the big dog blanket that absolutely covers the crime underneath, then I think you'd be fired on the spot. I'd be tapping at the window.
Quite the opposite. They've recommended me to 2 more people.
Wow, so they really like your homeless stylings.
They think it's worthwhile.
That's pretty
It's
cool.
a different. They know it's a raw. It's a real experience
From the streets, University of Hard Knocks.
So I did that, and then I had to tutor elsewhere, and then I've come home, and I'm just in that kind of
In the zone.
3rd or 4th wind.
Do you feel like you unlock any good powers in this sleepless zone?
I feel like I'll unlock the power to be very tired tomorrow.
That's a good one. Do you ever get the power of being more aware of your heartbeat than usual?
No.
Me neither.
That's
because
just
I've
you.
read that online that afflicts some of the weaker individuals of the species. What about the power to really like overly focus in on a single task? That's another one you unlock in tiredness, I usually find.
Yeah.
You can become very like into one thing because your brain's like, I can't change. I'm set up to enjoy this medium. And if I try and reconfigure myself to read a book, to talk to my grandma, to think about a cat that you might have seen, that's it. You're done.
I just find that tiredness brings to that same kind of loss of inhibition that drunkenness does for me.
And that's why you're recording in the nude.
Yeah.
Nice. I did wonder.
And it's nice of you not to have brought it up
No,
until
well,
now.
I'm very progressive.
But if I'm very tired, if I get at all hungry, I'll be like, well, I'm ordering him. That's it. That's the end.
I'm eating snow.
Yeah, it has that same effect on me. And then the next day I'm like, oh God, how much I didn't drink at all. I was just very tired.
So sleep and drunkenness are in your mind basically the same thing.
Yeah, I was very, very tired when I was leaving work this morning. And it leads nicely into one of the things I wanted to talk about, because today or yesterday was Remembrance Sunday.
Have you forgotten yet?
No,
Okay.
lest we.
Well, look at that big tree and swear that you'll never forget.
Shamp.
Hashtag. Okay, that's good.
And it was, it's a big one because the 11th fell on the Remembrance Sunday, and you're like, oh, people get excited about that. They're like, it's not one of your, it's not
Remembrance
rubbish.
Wednesday. Like, come on.
Who's got time to be reverential
I haven't
on a Wednesday?
remembered anything on a Wednesday.
On Hump Day.
Oh, don't be calling it that.
But it just so happened that 11 o'clock was exactly when I was leaving. And I had to hand in a pass and get my driver's license back, because you have to like hand in some ID in order to get a pass to go around the building.
Right.
And the guy behind the desk was stood hand over heart.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, what dedication to the job. And then I looked, because it's a like TV company, there are screens everywhere, and they were just all showing the 2-minute silence at like the cenotaph and all around the country. And I was just sort of...
You went...
no, I was just like waving it in his face. So I'm not going to say anything, but I have to go. I have to get somewhere and sleep. And I'm sorry. I won't say anything.
Those people whose sacrifice we will never forget, they died for your freedom.
For my freedom to just wave
be a
this...
slave to the capitalist machine where you have to go from one job to the next.
To just wave this lanyard in this bloke's face.
Yeah.
And
maybe a veteran himself.
No.
Could be. You never know.
Definitely
Sometimes
not.
it's the sneaky veterans that really remember it the hardest.
They are big on the old Remembrance. So, I mean, I didn't get off to the most profound start to the day.
So
and
you
also,
didn't do any remembering in the 2-minute silence?
No, not
I did a
during
lot,
that.
but what I was remembering, I set my alarm for midday. So I woke up a little bit before at like 10:50, and I thought, I'll go back to sleep. But what I was remembering as the 11 o'clock ticked over was this big dream I had, all about this one spider. And it's pertinent to your life because, I'll be honest, it had your face. And it was about as big as your head, this spider. And it was crawling all around our flat. But you were there as well, and you had this big sieve that you thought would save the day somehow. I was remembering that.
Were we remarking on the fact that I was there, but the spider had my face?
No, we took that as just another run-of-the-mill Tuesday night.
It's another day in Colindale.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts. But I don't know. What I'm saying is I don't think it's explicitly related to the atrocities of war. But in a way...
It's pretty horrible.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I know what it's like, but if that spider with your face were here, it would inarguably be worse.
Yes.
Yeah, good.
I remember that Remembrance Sunday was a massive thing when I was at school.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was a, quite stuffy grammar school, boys' school.
A lot of good lads from Essex, of course.
Yes,
Went off
and
and
there's
fought.
lots of they have a plaque up in the school about like students and teachers who've been lost during the war. Who were killed,
Just sat now.
Many of them came back,
Where
but
is Germany?
they just were, absolutely, just spun out.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the Remembrance services that we had was my first real interaction with the headmaster, because my English teacher put me forward to do a reading. So I turned up where there was like a small rehearsal the day before at break time. And we turned up and we were given our things that we were going to read. And,
it wasn't something you'd written yourself.
No, it was not.
Right.
But it was worse. That was the problem. Was that, someone got up and did, at the going up of the sun and at the going down of the sun. Basically, wherever the sun is, we will remember.
I shouldn't have mentioned the sun in hindsight because it was broadly irrelevant to the concept.
Someone does in Flanders Fields, and there's a couple others, like a couple of journal readings. And then I had one, and I think it was the school's earliest push towards diversity was that this was actually a poem by a German soldier that had been translated.
Okay.
Now, I don't know whether it was just a very bad translation or whether the poet himself was somewhat simple.
Okay.
But
maybe injured in the mind.
Could have been. But it was a laughably year 2 poem. I remember very distinctly that one of the couplets in it was...
Was it racist meter, was it?
Basically, yeah,
Nice.
of course.
Good. You'll have to go back in the archives for what that means, guys, because we won't be explaining again.
It was when the boys marched through the streets. I swear that I have cried. It's a shame they all went off to war and then that they all died. Like, it was basically exactly it was the cried died rhyme, a classic in the war poem genre. In
Core
the
and war.
Yeah. And I just, the headmaster turned up and he was this quite large man. He was just a huge presence.
A veteran, was he?
Else. No, not a veteran.
Could be, though, you're saying.
But a sort of, he was a fan of, he was one of these people who thought Enoch Powell was a bit misunderstood.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
But he came in and I was sort of a bit intimidated because I'd never really spoken to him before, and he was quite a terrifying person.
Well, he'd been in the war.
And he was like, "Everything okay with the readings?" Mm-hmm. And everyone sort of nodded along. And I'd mentioned to the teacher who had been running the rehearsal that I was not going to be reading.
Sir, am I reading shit?
And, well, that's basically what this teacher made me do. He was like, well, I'm not telling him. You can tell him.
Wow.
So I said, actually, I've got a problem with my reading.
Okay.
And he was like, right. And what's that? And I said, I just think it's quite laughably bad. And I don't think I could read it with a straight face. Mm-hmm. And I therefore think that it would, sully the ceremony.
Yeah, because then what people are going to be remembrancing is when you laughed
during
the war dead.
At all of the troops, past, present and future.
I spat upon the troops' mouths.
Into their mouths.
Straight down Thorpe Park.
And he was like, and which is yours? And I said, it's this German poem. Dolce it. No. And so he was like, oh, I see. Come with me. So I had to follow him back to his office. Oh, we went straight into his office, and he sat down behind his desk, and I sort of like stood furtively on the other side, mm-hmm. and then he kind of like gestured to me to sit down, and he picked up his phone and he punched in a number that he knew by heart, which kind of worried me.
1-800 war poetry.
thewarpolice.com. And it rang for a bit, and then he said, yes, hello dearest. Mm-hmm. At which point I surmised it was probably his wife
or mother.
Could have been.
Or another one of his battalion, because you become very bonded in the war scenario.
The homoeroticism of the military.
Absolutely. Well, we don't call it that as soldiers ourselves. We tend to refer to it as camaraderie. That's where that word comes from.
Oh, right. Yeah. I see. But there's still the same amount of bumming going on.
Oh, God, yeah.
Right, yeah.
Rampant.
And he said, yes, got a boy here. Not a big fan of your translation. He said, and I was there going, no, it's not, yes, what was it he said? Laughable, he said.
Oh.
I was like, oh, come on, man. Wow. I don't need this. And he went, no, I haven't asked him actually. And he leant over and he went, sorry, what are you going to read instead? He went, and
I've written a few things. I've got 5 minutes on the horrors of the trenches, lions led by donkeys. I do a little mime.
Don't you worry. The trench foot bit. It's really a silent routine,
harrowing,
but it has people in bits. And I just panicked and said, Dolce Decorum. It was the only war poem I knew. We'd had to study it in like year 7. And he was like, and he just sort of nodded and went, yeah, okay. And so I had to get out there and do that.
But hang on, what was the fallout from this? Because at the moment he's just unnecessarily told, I assume his wife, that strangers think she's shit at German, which seems really mean,
and
unless
poetry.
It's to prove a point.
But the sort of long and the short of it was that I read Dulce Decorum Es, and then when
one woman went out crying. It's not like it used to be. Cried, died, took me 2 months. She went straight home, wrote a letter to rhymezone.com. Subject, you've let me down again.
Me.
Remembrance
My husband.
this.
My husband will never look at me the same again.
Oh dear.
No, but we sort of filed off the stage solemnly to some sort of music.
Yeah.
And
Usher.
and just a bit sooner than I think he probably should have, because it's all supposed to be very, very like silent and mournful. He went, "No, you're right, much better."
That was bullshit, that whole war.
I fucking hate my wife. Silly cow.
Can't even speak German, I don't
The only other poet she knows is Dr. Seuss.
Well, look, it's one of those solemn days, isn't it? And especially because it's, it's hundreds and thousands of years since the war now, isn't it?
100.
Or
At least
a couple of hundred,
since it
some have
ended.
said.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what I'd like to do is cast our minds forwards. I know it's Remembrance Sunday,
Okay.
but where better to remember than the future, where some of the greatest memories live
are yet to be made.
in tadpole form, sperm in the ether. What type of future soldier are you?
Oh.
It's a question we all ask ourselves each morning, brushing away at those
the answer
mouth
is simple
bones
as
in the
Space
mirror.
Cowboy.
And that's an often, what I'll tell you is a lot of people think Space Cowboy. And it's one of these things that in the meritocratic future,
Right.
if the present's anything to go by, it will be difficult for everyone to become a Space Cowboy. In the same way that like not everyone's going to be an Auror in Harry Potter. Or not everyone's going to be the Lord of the Rings in The Lord of the
that
Rings.
book, yeah.
100 years in the future, technology and warfare will evolve into new levels beyond complexity.
Sorry, is there still going to be like civilization in 100 years?
Yeah. It's going to be nuts. It's going to be very war-based. Using this test...
That'll make for a nice change.
Absolutely. You can find out your suitability for your preferred type of futuristic soldier. Yes, it's a quiz.
Oh!
Some rejected quizzes include... Which side of World War II would you have been on? A short quiz.
a very short and a very sort of coin toss of a quiz that tells you a lot about those who answer.
The first question was, which of these were you born in? A German-speaking country or an English-speaking country? So I feel like at that point you've branched off irretrievably from one of the avenues. But maybe you were a defector.
How do you feel about these populations?
Rank from 1 to 10. So this is a quiz. It's on allthetests.com. I imagine you've got some tests from there.
Well, yeah, I think it's bookmarked.
And perhaps I'm underselling it by using the word quiz, because we think quiz, and especially in the context of the show, we think frivolous things like which Columbine victim are you? A classic from our early days. Or... many of them.
Which My Little Pony character am
exactly,
I?
a Patreon exclusive, I believe. But this is a test developed by Patrick Gibbs. That's his verb, not mine.
Oh, well done, Patrick.
Over 56,000 people have taken it, and it's rated 4.3 out of 5. So there's quality there. Room for
it's good.
improvement, but quality essentially.
Well, you've got to account for people who just weren't quite happy with the result that they got. It's not the test's fault that it doesn't tell people what they want to hear.
Yeah, it's not.
If you're going to be, I don't know, like space janitor,
that's
maybe
one
not
of the
everyone
weirdest
wants
types of soldier, for sure. Number 1, what type of suit would you wear during your operations? I've got 4 options for you. It's the classic.
Okay.
Nano-supplemented ghillie suit.
Right.
Light armour padding and ballistic vests.
Right.
Thick armour suit with metal braces. That's a style point. Or protective limb cloth with lots of chest-worn supplies.
Limb cloth.
Limb cloth, yes.
I mean, not only does limb cloth sound like a single
David
and
Limcloth.
abhorrent word, but I don't really want any of my armour to have the word cloth in it.
Like
a
magic spell caster in an RPG.
Yeah, even if it was just like a brand name, it doesn't inspire confidence in me. I feel like
What if it was cloth with a K?
I feel like even
Killer
worse
cloth?
then. No.
Oh, okay.
I feel like the enemy's bullets would just be more confident coming
Yeah, I
at me
guess they would.
if they're like, calls it cloth.
Let me just... it seems like you did miss the second part, though, because... Sure, there's the protective limb cloth, but it does say with lots of chest-worn supplies.
chest worn supplies.
Yeah, so you're going to have
right, but then again, that doesn't.
pot noodle, cup of soup, maybe.
Yeah, one of those little like LED flashlights that last for about 10 minutes.
Copy of like Nuts magazine.
Well, you never know. You
CV.
need to keep the mind active as well as
And the
anything
cock.
else. Well, I watched you deliberate over that for just the smallest instant. It flashed across your mind and across the eyes, and you 99 times out of 100 you'd have batted it away as a little thought. But because it's Remembrance Sunday, you thought, you don't want to imply that the troops are impotent.
No,
because of all of that
course not.
PTSD and all that guilt.
No, I'm saying they're more potent than ever before in the future.
Well, especially with this
nanobots.
nanotech ghillie suit,
it'd
which
be
I'm
great.
definitely going to be wearing all over my skin.
Nano supplemented ghillie suit it is. What's your preferred battle environment?
Oh, okay.
I'll preempt you because none of them is option 5, none.
Okay, I'm just going to say this is in the future. Are these going to be battle environments to which I can relate in the present?
No, I think what's his name, Patrick Gibbs. He thought of that because he could have said Sector 7-12 Neutron, and we'd be like, well, Patrick, I just don't know where that is.
Yeah.
Is that Birmingham? Like, is that what they call that in the future? But no, he's gone for some quite generic yet specific descriptions, which I think will help ground us in reality.
So is it which do I prefer? What's my favourite? Is it
it's your
in which I'm
preferred battle
best?
environment. So I guess it's
I suppose there's an implication that it's preferred in terms of combat.
yeah,
But it could just be
not necessarily
that I like the
combat
aesthetic.
proficiency. Yeah, it could be like I enjoy fighting by the river because I love the nature sounds and I like the way the blood trickles down into it and then goes off into the sea, reminding us of the arteries of the world, much like our own, and we're all one.
There'll be some more about blood trickling later.
Good. I like to hear that. Dark and dense areas, like jungles or complex hiding places. That's option 1. Wide open field for full range firing.
Oh, okay.
Indoor or tight outdoors.
Well, sorry.
Tight outdoors? You not been the adventure playground?
What is tight outdoors?
I guess it must mean like where 2 trees hug and you sneak between them with your hand grenade.
And
ready.
is there anyone out there just spitting, just
God,
flinging
yes.
the phlegm around?
Goodness me. there
Okay,
is.
right.
Number 4.
We should probably say
yeah.
just because she was going to tweet officially.
Oh, she did tweet.
Oh, did she? I
But her
didn't see.
account's private, so it didn't go.
Oh, I see. Friend and listener and Thought Park attendee Becky Goodwin had a little listen to
to the very, very long.
our very overly long Thought Park episode and subsequently sent me this message.
Go on. Positive praise.
I was just listening to the Thought Park podcast. Got to the bit where you described someone spitting in your mouth.
Mm-hmm.
I was literally, and I mean literally, sick on the floor,
Oh, no.
on my bedroom floor.
She should see someone about that for sure.
So, it's for those who haven't listened yet, it is a visceral
Yeah.
event
Well,
in
we,
the
with
history
our
of storytelling.
words, we painted what it was like to be there and more specifically
To be spat in.
to have the gob of another man's throat ejaculate, if you will, from his mouth
from
straight
there
down yours.
into mine.
Do not pass go where go
All
is
sorts of
the
gobbets
kind of oral sphincter.
spittle.
Just straight down. So tight outdoor spaces, of course. Or number 4 is anywhere, really.
You know what? I'm a man who doesn't like to be pigeonholed by his battleground. So
Or
I'm going
the
to
tight
say,
outdoors.
as much as one obviously does love the tight
And
outdoors,
that's a lot.
I'm going to have to say that it's going to be anywhere really.
Okay, fair. Question 3. What natural attribute...
At the moment, I am just a kind of meandering man in a ghillie costume in the future.
Also, if you've got a ghillie suit anywhere, like what if you're having a fight in like a car park?
An urban.
You're like an idiot. There'll be like shoot the walking palm.
Imagine if like Neo had worn a ghillie suit in
when
the
he was trying to
Matrix.
bend backwards, there were just bits of ghillie flailing. What natural attribute would you rather have enhanced? Forceful strength from reinforced chemicals. So not just your bog standard common or garden
strength.
chemicals. It's forceful strength from reinforced chemicals.
Right.
Microchip implanted intelligence. nanite bloodstream for health and survival.
Okay.
It's great when those two mesh. Really big fan.
You don't want one without the other. You don't want to be the healthiest dead guy in the
No
graveyard.
survival, yeah. Peripheral eyesight and hearing. Keen instinct.
Well, I've already got peripheral eyesight and hearing. So and you know,
How's your instinct?
Whilst I'm, you know, I'd hardly say I'm a man of the great outdoors. I'm no huntsman. I'm no woodsman.
Sure.
I do have instincts. So
Keen or could be keener maybe.
well, you know, given that my environment is anywhere,
Yeah.
you know, sometimes good, sometimes not. Depends which way the wind's blowing.
No, I like it.
almost literally. I think I'm going to have to stick to my nanobot like theme.
you're going nanite
I'm
bloodstream.
going for the nanite blood.
That's fair, yeah.
Imagine if you could. Would you prefer that? Do you think
To know that I had little robots in my blood.
to know that your blood was little robots and you could
Entirely.
feel them all rumbling around?
Well, I wouldn't like that, of course, and I would kill myself instantly the moment the dialysis began. But the idea of like nanobots fucking around inside, yeah, sign
You
me
love
up.
that.
Tick,
Yeah.
tick.
What if it's another of these things where we haven't, you know, they're not quite nano yet.
Oh,
it's
so
like
Henry
they're like the
Hoover
size of like
fucking around in there.
pennies, just like bopping
bumping
around
into your
inside
ribs.
you.
No, absolutely not. Each soldier, I don't know if you knew this about the future, has an
Soldier.
exoskeleton. But what upgrade?
Now, do they mean a literal exoskeleton?
But what upgrade would you have rather than the standard issue? Because
It's going to be nanobots, I'm afraid.
No, it's not. I've looked.
No.
Number 1, enhanced sensors and environment scanners. So this is going to be great for the kind of soldier who really wants to get a sense of place.
I like the idea because, you know, whilst I suppose one exoskeleton could have better sensors than another,
You just not give them.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it's much of an enhancement. It feels like you've just given other people cheaper exoskeletons.
Well, that's the nature of enhancement, really. Isn't it?
It's also the nature of war.
Lightweight and easily maneuverable. So that's for your kind of soldier who wants to zip about like a
In the
sort of
tight outdoors.
armoured gnat in the tight outdoors.
Yeah.
Pinging around bullets left, right and centre. If indeed bullets are the form of warfare, perhaps we'll just be using
Thought.
Bitcoin. I was
Maybe
going to
it'd just be diplomacy.
not so much.
But
You
in
don't
the
need an
woods.
exoskeleton for that. Screw exoskeletons. Someone get me a mech suit. That's option 3.
Okay.
Option 4, optical camouflage cloaking systems. I suggest we take as our model James Bond's car in the excellent film that Madonna sings about, Die Another Day. Is it that one? Where his
Sure.
car goes invisible.
Oh, yeah. You know what? I'm going to go for the invisibility one. I'd like to be a big
It
invisible
also seems like
exoskeleton.
a lot better. Like, sure, you're lightweight, but you can't see me. So it doesn't matter. Like, what can you do?
What are you going to do about it?
Number 5. What's your preferred primary weapon? There are a few here that I think are going to appeal to you. So really try and and dive into the core of your own being to think, what kind of future soldier am I?
I'm going to think about that, but I'm also, just because of the occasion, I'm going to think back and I'm going to think, if I were there in the
would you have
trenches, if
wished
I were there at the done,
Yeah.
what would I have wanted
That's
most?
a really good approach. I'm very respectful.
And the answer
no matter
is...
what the reviews say. Shotgun that decimates enemies with blasts of concussive kinetic sound waves. So a kind of shout gun, I'd call it myself.
Yeah.
Compressed sniper with LED readouts, sure, and infrared scope. How do you feel about that one?
I think that there's a bit more to sniping than most games make
than an
out.
LED readout.
Yeah, I feel like the LED readout is really going to have to carry us
Do you
as
think
a
you
team.
meant LCD? Because LED is just a bulb. So it's just going to be like, the gun is on.
the gun is off.
Oh, fuck. Battery powered, sure, laser
future.
rifle that
Laser
shoots
rifle.
small beams of heated energy.
Okay.
Lasers.
So that's just a laser gun like in Star Wars.
Or I think you're going to like this one. An assault rifle that digitally prints bullets. How do you feel about that? It's a
It
3D
feels like it's going
printing
to take
fire.
so long. Like you pull the
Leave it
trigger and
overnight.
5 minutes later, it just like piddles out a little bit of cardboard.
One bullet.
I'm going to go for the little concussive shout gun.
Yeah, I think that's.
I like to think of it as being similar to those ones they have in Minority Report that I really like. Just like firing people back.
There's
or
also,
that new Overwatch character.
Yeah, Ash. She's got a coach gun that does that. There's also a really nice poetry between being the invisible soldier whose gun is the loudest.
Yes.
I think that would be... You would become a very startling
the biggest,
oppositional
loudest
figure.
gun from the most invisible
Yeah,
man
'cause
made
they
of the
wouldn't know-
tiniest robots.
Think how scary that is. Like, the sound of... They'd be like, oh, well, Delane's back. Future Delane.
Wherever he is.
It could be anywhere, and then they just get shouted to death. If necessary, what other weapon would you carry? Submachine gun.
Sorry, and did they do this quiz at the Cenotaph earlier?
I think Corbyn
Just
did, yeah, as far as I'm aware.
In that coat of his?
Yeah, coat, the respectful coat.
Sure.
Submachine gun, suppressed pistol, heavy rocket launcher, or handheld mass driver.
So I didn't even hear what the question was.
What other weapon would you carry?
Oh, so it's just the same question again.
Yeah, but this one does say if necessary.
Oh, right. Sorry. So what? I don't think I need to, but go on. What were the options?
Submachine gun.
Nah.
SMG, we call that in the beers. And
is
beers,
that-
I mean army.
Oh, right. Okay.
Suppressed pistol. That's one that's quite quiet.
got
and it hasn't
daddy
come out to its
issues.
parents. Heavy rocket launcher. Leave that one. Handheld mass driver. That's not like a
does that
mass
do?
transit system.
What does it
I
do?
assume it drives mass, like a car. It's a handheld. It's a remote control car. I picked up this cool handheld mass driver.
Well, I'm taking the Hot Wheels, I'm afraid. Yeah, it's
Sure,
got to
go
be.
for it. Time to harness some tactical equipment. Which would you choose? Nano gloves.
The smallest gloves in the fucking world.
One per bullet. Overlaid vision goggles. Hacking device that targets electrical devices.
Sorry, what does it mean by overlaid vision goggles? Like, I assume that all goggles are vision goggles in some sense.
Backpack that generates ammo for me. That could go well with the gun that you didn't choose.
Yeah. What was the third option?
Hacking device that targets electrical devices.
As opposed to just like analog
Hacking device
devices.
that targets just
Like,
woodland
just-
creatures.
that targets like hammers and
Yeah.
stuff.
They're really
Imagine if
quite
you
effectual.
hacked a hammer.
10 crazy hacks.
We're in, boys. What should we make him do? I think I'm going to go for the hacking.
Yeah, because think about the future.
I'm going to fly
It's
my
gonna be
little
big.
robots out. They're going to fuck up all sorts of electronics.
Number 8 is weirdly worded. Your choice of grenade? Smoke grenade that produces a deadly electrical current.
I'm afraid to tell him that that's an electrical grenade.
Variable that lets me toggle between normal, corrosive, or napalm.
Wow.
That's a war crime.
Those are a good three-tier system. Normal, corrosive, and napalm should not be any spectrum that I'm asked to comment upon.
Threat detection that scans heat signatures and enemies. Only targeting the hottest. Or heat seekers that hunt and blow up enemies, which is the same thing.
I'm going to go with this electric one. I like the sound of that. I'm basically building an identity for myself as a nanobot, exoskeletoid,
It's quite cool.
shouty gun, invisible hacker.
You seem to think that you're a kind of cyberpunk goth.
Well, yeah,
Goths
because it's going to be
army
the
man.
future.
that's what we'll
Either everything's going to be technology, in which case my hacking abilities are going to be incredible,
Really important.
or the cyber will already have gone down. We'll be
Sunk.
back to a kind of like pre-industrial society.
Yeah.
In which case, my technology is going to make me into some kind of deity.
A walking invisible shout god.
Yeah, and I'm just going to have to win every war like that.
I think that's fair. What's your best strategy with teammates? Work together and fight in unison.
I don't have any teammates. It's just me.
I work alone, lone wolf style. I always at the front, wreaking havoc.
I always at the front
Yeah.
wreaking havoc. Yeah.
Or, number 4, my team are small robots that cause chaos.
Oh, well, it's obviously that one. That's my whole identity.
It's little BB-8s. Who's your companion? An assault ground robot designed by me, Isaac. A combat dog, trained and genetically engineered by me,
Isaac.
My companions are the machine guns that I fire, said the definite school shooter.
Said the Full Metal Jacket.
Whisper drone. He looks out for enemies and watches my back.
Oh, I want my buddy Whisper
ASMR.
Drone. Yeah.
Okay, Whisper Drone it is. 2 more questions, then we get to find out.
Oh, I'm so hyped.
Preferred vehicle, hover bike and stealth aircraft. I don't know how they interact.
Hover
Doesn't
bike?
matter. Convertible 4-legged tank and VTOL gunship.
What does it convert into?
Table. Handy latrine.
Bidet.
We don't know what a VTOL gunship is, so let's just gloss over that.
Yeah.
APC and chopper drone. Sure.
Okay.
Fast army jeep. An FOJ. A fadge, as we call it.
In the army. In the troops, we call it a fadge.
Me and my troops, we were driving around the fadge the other day to war.
Me and Whisper Drone Jim.
What's it going to be?
I think it's going to have to be the Fast Army Jeep.
It absolutely has to be. Now, these questions you'll have noticed, they've been quite technical. Good job keeping up with some of the lingo.
That's all right.
You clearly know your stuff.
That's all the respect for the troops I have.
And also having a veteran headmaster as well.
Well,
is going to sink into you. This question, the final one, is far more profound, far more ideological. And I think this is where the quiz, as devised by our pal Gibbsy, Patrick Gibbs, developed, my mistake. I think this is where the quiz really gets to know you, the person, rather than you, the image that you have of yourself in the future. What purpose do you fight for? Number 1, power means everything.
Okay.
Number 2, to protect, to hunt. Very different ideas.
He protected, he attacked, but most of all, he hunt the fuck out of everything.
For freedom and martial law. Some have thought them incompatible. It turns out next century,
Gibbsy, he's had the brilliant idea to just combine the two. What could be more free than living
Martial
under
law.
military
We've all seen what
totalitarianism?
Bane did with that great city Gotham.
And everyone was as happy as they've ever been. They'd never been so free.
They crumbled their football ground out of sheer joy. Or number 4, to restore humanity with the help of robotics. Think it through. This has got to be truth.
I was plucking for the one that started freedom, but I'm going to say overwhelmingly let down by the follow-up clause of the martial law.
Yes.
So what I think is, whilst none of these causes particularly appeal to me,
What? To hunt?
they don't speak
Isn't that why we all
to
joined the army?
protect
Oh, yeah.
and to hunt.
Yeah.
So 6 or 1. But I think that it would be remiss of me if I chose anything other than to help my good buddy Isaac on his quest to restore humanity with the help of robotics.
iRobot, where the I is just my name.
Yeah.
Congratulations. It's time for the test results. What type of soldier are you? Your profile.
Army chef, army chaplain.
What if it just said, you were a conscientious objector?
Probably.
You were just not allowed in the army. Okay, so the first thing to note is that with quizzes this complex, there's always going to be grey areas.
Obviously.
And that has been flagged up for me here by the quiz of, let's remind ourselves, 12 questions, 4 answers apiece, pre-written, all of them. They weren't just being made up on the fly. Our results were not clear. So that's a good start.
Okay, good.
But we've got some knowledge for us.
Right,
here.
okay. Hit me.
8% of you is a mean, keen, bent in the head machine. How do you feel
My
about
gay robot.
Is that what that means?
Wow.
It's all about power to you as you wreak utter havoc upon your foe.
It gave me the option to choose that, and I said no.
33% of you is utterly unpredictable. You're not much of a fighter.
Well, how does it know? I just spent half an hour picking weapons for a future war.
But instead, at the edge of your fingertips, you have the edge of your fingertips. That's a horrid concept.
Don't like the idea.
You have access of robotic armies to fight for you.
I like that it like you say, it's a pre-written quiz. Mm-hmm. All of these answers are pre-calculated and put together, and 1/3 of them came to the conclusion that I'm unpredictable. 1/3 of my answers told him nothing. 8%.
No one's ever chosen these before. Patrick Gibbs is at home, like, typing up a
We
new
got a
avenue.
debug. 8% of it is stuff that I objectively didn't choose. That's good.
25% of you is loyal, faithful frontline soldier.
And hunting.
You can accomplish many great feats and handle scenarios quite correctly. You're not afraid to make risks, not take them, but make them. That's such a lovely small mistake, big error.
Make risks.
Also,
I'm the Leroy Jenkins of future war.
get this sentence. Pass it with me. You have a shared attribute pond between survival strategy and great leader profile C. What does that mean, even a bit?
I
have no jumping on point.
I was almost on board until the C, and then I just don't know.
But here, by the way, just quick gut check. The first one was the first one was 8%, then we had 25, then 33. Now we've got 63% of you. So this is you though, isn't it? This is a you at the core. Despite the lack of
I'm more than
clarity.
100% man.
You are stealthy, silent, and ever so violent. You don't want the need for human companionship and love to hunt on the prowl.
I've got my robots on the edge of my fingertips.
Using tech to evade and hunt enemies, you truly have a matter of skill and enjoy the thrill of being undetected, no matter where or who is watching.
That makes me sound like a peeping Tom.
That's not what you're using the invisibility for.
No.
And then you freak them out of the chat.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm not actually in a war. There is no war in the future. It's a perfectly
changing
peaceful
rooms.
society.
It ends with this sentence that I think you'll enjoy as well. Any army would want you as their pet direwolf.
Anyone would want me as the gay, perverted, cowardly
peepo.
unpredictable soldier who's 90% bot.
But it managed to read a lot from you, for sure.
Yeah, well, I suppose if you say that I was a bit of everything, then, why not?
And in fact, more than 100% of each thing as well.
Yeah.
That's really powerful.
It's good.
We should do a quick bit of housekeeping, because I just remembered that it was our pal, Paul Shayetti Chandler's 100th birthday. Just yesterday.
Wow.
And he had it in honour of the troops, I'm told, reliably.
Well done,
We just
Paul,
thought
for all that respect.
we'd sing you the opening line of Happy Birthday to you. 3, 2, 1. Happy birthday to you. And there it was.
Well done.
We don't often go to those sorts of lengths
No,
for
very
listeners,
rarely, very rarely.
But Paul's an exception. The exception that proves the rule.
I feel as though some listeners may have come away thus far with the idea that we think very flippantly of those who lost their lives in the wars.
I don't think so.
Just some of the stuff that we've some of our mentioned
I guess
troops.
kind of ineffable stuff though. There's
You
nothing
couldn't put a
could point
finger at
to,
nothing you could bring up in court.
No.
No. Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing that you
Just say
could
a
bring
bit-
up in
bit-
nothing
Yeah.
that you
Your Honour.
could bring up in court.
Nice wig.
But it's mostly a reaction to the increasingly ludicrous lengths to which people feel they need to go. People and corporations feel they need to go in order to be respectful TM enough for this season.
Yeah.
It was once a case that if you wanted to show a little bit of support for those who had died and you wanted a little symbol of remembrance, then you could have purchased a poppy for a small donation.
I know that. The red flower. The red drug flower.
Pinned it to the lapel and been about your way. But it has since become, through a kind of combination, I think, of some quite exploitative right-wing rhetoric and also the rise in complaints culture. It's become simply an industry in and of itself. There are guidelines. There's an actual date, a window, wherein if you are going to be seen on television, you have to be wearing a poppy.
Really?
Yep.
On any network?
Any network.
That's mental.
If you are going to be appearing, then you have to be. One of the runner shifts I did recently was the first day of that window, and there was a massive panic because they didn't have any poppies in, and they were like, it was properly like meltdown time.
Wow.
They had to rush out.
What happens if you don't?
Because it's against basically it's that there are legions of old angry white people.
Oh, the gammons
just waiting. They know the date, and when it ticks over at midnight, they're there. They've
Counting
like got
down
someone
the days.
watching everything, making sure, ready to write in thousands of complaints coming in, and then you have to do 10 minutes of apology and whatnot, and you have to go and lick the cenotaph.
Is that part of that?
Just to say sorry. Yeah. And there's a very good Twitter account called Poppy Watch that I follow that just keeps an eye on all of these somewhat ludicrous displays of so-called respect or
maybe
remembrance.
They're radical remembrances.
Yeah, they remember the hardest.
Yeah, they remember so.
Live hard, die hard, remember harder.
Remember big. Yeah.
Someone I follow put it as, the gaps between what is being remembered and how people choose to remember it just grows.
Yes.
Further and further.
Do you feel like
diverges.
mostly they're just remembering to be annoyed at people who aren't remembering well enough?
Yes, they're annoyed at that, and they're also it's to show other people that you remember.
Yeah,
you want other people to remember that you remembered. Otherwise, did you really remember?
That's true. It's like the old tight outdoors tree.
So, just some examples from the old Poppy Watch account. Their pinned tweet is an absolute classic that just pretty much sums up these media guidelines for wearing poppies. The tagline is "Me remember fallen."
Okay,
and it is a few screen grabs from 2016 wherein the Cookie Monster appearing on the One Show wearing a poppy.
Oh,
because
goodness.
He has to be there.
But the scale's all wrong, I bet.
Well, there it is. You can have a little look.
Yeah, it looks ridiculous on him.
Of course it does, because he's
a little monster.
Puppet.
Well,
let's not
call anyone
someone's
names.
hand.
I think if those lads died for anything, it's that you don't have the right to say that about the Cookie Monster, because that's fascism.
Is that it? Is that what they were fighting against?
I've checked only briefly, but I think that's the gist.
Obviously, there's the usual suspects in that corporations like to jump on board, like they do with Gay Pride Month and Black History Month.
As a member of the LGBTQ community, do you find that that's very sensitively handled? The community is broadly happy with, like, I don't know, Virgin Capital diving in and being like, Happy Gay Day.
Well, yeah, because, Richard Branson personally does all that really great stuff for, like healthcare.
Didn't he start Stonewall?
I don't think it was him that started it, but I think that he was going to, and then he let someone else do it because he already had the planes. He already had that
more
record
altruistic in a way.
He already had bought up all those hospitals so that he could sell like healthcare. Here's one, very tasteful, I think.
Good.
Keeping in with the theme of death, Co-op Funeral Care, just doing a little personalised poppy wreath there. There's just a little sponsor. Just pop the brand on.
Yeah, just because you've got to remember the name. Lest we forget, it pays to advertise. Yeah, Remembrance brought to you by.
Because then you know what they say. If you attach a brand to it, people are going to remember more. That's why people have all these sponsors and stuff.
World War I brought to you by
of course, no one is above and no one is below remembering. And there's lots of budget cuts going on in the country.
God, tell me about it.
As you can see here, the bin men.
Oh, yes.
Big supporters of the troops.
Good.
And what they've done here is they've tactfully, and if I may say so, respectfully, they've just popped a big plasma screen TV on the side of the bin truck with "We Remember Them."
Oh,
screen
that's
displayed
very
on,
good,
just so that as they go about their day, collecting trash
and throwing the trash behind the remembrance screen.
And it's just being churned up behind, a bit like Verdun or something.
Well, yeah,
you know that they're remembering.
That's
all the while they're just picking up like your old bin bags.
I'd hate to have my rubbish disposed of excellently by someone who wasn't fully remembering.
No,
at the time.
I want them to be mournful as they take their trash out.
Sad
And
expression.
just to be clear, that's all year round, not just for this. Yeah. The Northern Railway lines,
Big
run
fan.
by Arriva, they decide to go one step further. They're not just going to remember.
Uh-huh.
They're so pro troop that they pledged to give free travel to veterans
of
and
World
members of the
War
army.
One.
No, any
Okay.
like veteran of like your own childhood.
Ah.
On their lines on Saturday the 10th and Sunday the 11th of November. There was strike action announced for that time.
Oh, but what
And
can
then
you
also
do?
like planned cancellations in the Northwest on Remembrance
yeah.
Sunday.
Yeah, but it's probably
But on all the trains that were going,
for those days.
you could, for those 2 days, you could.
It's good because that shows that they really care. Because why would they make it such a specific time frame unless they wanted all the veterans to get together and enjoy the comforts of high-speed train travel?
Exactly. Andy Walton shares this saying, at the going down of the sun and at the cancellation of the 11:52 to Preston, we will remember them.
Preston was a fantastic choice.
Products. Products are a big thing.
Do you think Mr. Kimpling's ever brainstormed doing like a special French fancy?
Did
they
you call
do.
him Mr. Kimpling?
I didn't mean to. Mr. Kimpling. Mr.
That's a horrid
Kipling.
name.
They do like Halloween ones where
Yeah.
they're orange little fairy cakes, and then Christmas ones where they're all white.
It's
I'm sure they will have tabled the discussion of shall we do a poppy one?
well, I think that they probably did, but I'm afraid that they were beaten to it by the poignant poppy and pepperoni pizza,
Oh,
as seen here, with the
Wow.
pepperoni arranged to display the poppy.
that so you can eat your own sorrow,
Eat your own remembrance,
your own national tragedy.
as you mourn, as that just deep set woe about such things as the state literally murdering hundreds of thousands of its own citizens and I don't want to hyperbolize,
No, don't.
literally no reason,
Oh.
and for literally no gain. You can just pop that on a pizza now.
Deep set memories, deep
Because
pan
sometimes
crust.
that's a bit hard to process. Sometimes, you haven't got time to think about, am I taking part in some kind of glorified, like military circle jerk, or should I actually be remembering that, millions of working class people from around the world, mostly people who are easily exploited, ethnic minorities.
Oh yeah, God. Of course.
Were just sent to sort of die in muddy holes. And then while they got to fight, but
Briefly.
what they meant was to walk. They got to walk into bullets.
That's a cut.
And
Is
that's
that
a
like
sort
fighting?
of combat.
Yeah. It's not a martial art they teach anymore.
No.
Because it was overwhelmingly failed.
It didn't bring a lot of success in the realm of combat, but they got to do that walk thinking of king and country.
That's good.
So but some have said since that it was a mindless, classist, horrific slaughter of innocent people.
It's the loony left, though, isn't it?
Oh,
That's
the
what you've got to look out
snowflake
for.
cucks.
Because Jeremy Corbyn, leader of the Labour Party. I don't know if you
yeah.
remember last year, maybe the year before, because he's got a pattern doing this. He went to the cenotaph and he laid a wreath because he's the leader of the opposition.
But he didn't wear any poppy.
It's not even about that for me. He bowed, but did he really bow?
Did he bow enough?
If you take a protractor to that man's
And also,
spine,
but then did you see this year?
it leaves a lot to be
This
desired.
year, they were like, he seems to be taking a piss with the bow this year.
Too much.
He was bowing too much, you see. They were
He's
like,
crafty.
because he was wearing that coat.
Yeah.
And that coat hates the EU. Did you know that?
That's
And that
clever.
coat single-handedly is responsible for Brexit.
For the Brexits. I thought so.
But, sometimes all of this, it's weighty political and historical, social
It's making
stuff.
me feel sick.
It's a lot to think
Is that
about.
normal?
So if instead you can just buy a pizza,
Yeah, well, that'll
and
do
that
the remembering
covers
for
it.
me.
then that's fine.
Because cheese is one of the old foods.
Bins again. Here's a couple of just bins that have been decorated.
Nice decorative bins. That's what they would have wanted.
Well, it is what they would have wanted. I was sensing a bit of sarcasm.
Oh no, sorry, that's just my tone.
Sorry.
I've been told I have an acerbic delivery sometimes.
Couple of products.
Yep.
Why not get yourself a unisex poppy onesie
Sure.
so you can remember while you sleep?
Or while you attend
you
a
had
fun day out.
Because you had that dream, and that obviously we're pretty sure that it was for the troops.
No, 100% was.
But but it's a dream because it's a subjective medium. People,
true. Yeah,
they're always going to be
There'll
naysayers.
be naysayers, 100%.
If you were wearing the unisex poppy onesie,
yeah,
then
in the dream
you'd be warm and you'd be respectful.
And is this in the dream layer that I'm wearing as well, or the sleeping?
I think it
both?
pervades. It
Okay,
permeates
that's
through the
good.
layers, like an Inception.
That's really
like
cool.
that Edith Piaf, just sort of like filtering through.
She loved the troops.
Cutting your toenails.
Oh,
Now the troops never got to do that really.
because of the gangrene
The gangrene, the trench foot. The rats had eaten them all.
and being killed. Most.
There was the
importantly.
being killed. Yeah, there was the dying and the drowning in mud.
Yeah,
Not in a
more
figurative
people
sense,
killed
literal.
by the mud than by gunfire and Ypres.
I think considerably.
Yeah,
like by
bad, isn't it?
fathoms.
Imagine dying in some horrid thick mud. They call it blue mud, don't
But they were dying for a cause.
Yeah, they were. Well, and it wasn't like that they were being exploited because they didn't have any other options.
No, they weren't made to go. It wasn't like a sort of.
Nah, it was just a friendly, like, oh, come on, like a really
Fancy
firm
it?
beckon.
Yeah.
The kind of beckon where there's someone behind you with
And
a gun.
they were all home by Christmas anyway. Yeah.
And they had that football match, so who's going to complain?
That was good that they let them do that.
Really
and then
good.
they just got to go back the next day and it was
And
like,
play again.
Because that's like the classic, I support Labour, but my friend supports the Tories, but
Fuck 'em.
But we're still friends.
Sorry, I meant we're still, yeah.
We're still friends, and that's what matters, is that they got to go and have that football game. And then the next day, there were like no hard feelings
Yeah.
when they just got to like walk into one another's machine guns
Yeah,
and
yeah,
barbed wire.
Gosh.
But yeah, if you wanted a poppy, like a November 11th nail clippers, just so that, because sometimes while you're doing the more mundane tasks, of
It's
the day,
really hard to remember such horrific and pressing tragedies on that kind of scale. Yeah, when you're doing something as trivial as just trimming excess keratin.
or if you're, just in the kitchen cutting up food.
Also,
Because we've got those IKEA knives, but I don't even know if Sweden.
they only ever make me remember that we need to get new ones because they're all
they're all
chipped.
broken. Yeah. But maybe you could get this. We'll share some of these. This stylish.
Oh, what's it say on it? It's got some.
There you go. It's
poems on
not got much text on it, but what it has got is like a little tank and a soldier silhouetted.
What I'm seeing,
And
then,
that's from Block Knives.
oh yeah,
Poppy Watch says, cutting edge remembrance.
Nice.
It would be an actual honour to be stabbed by one of these.
what I'm getting then is that everything that we're doing so far is basically just a litany of missed opportunities for capitalists, sure, but well-meaning remembrance. So whether it's using shower gel, looking at a bus,
Everything you
Wandering
do
about
could be an
tennis.
act of remembrance if only you cared enough.
I feel really like I'm letting the side down.
These mannequins weeping blood over the skulls of lost comrades really helped me remember the fallen. There's a nice little
Oh, that's
in the front
great.
shot.
Yeah.
There's the running blood I said we'd get later.
That's really nice.
and it's
to
just
check
running
on.
down from the eyes like from a chlorine attack, just so that you really remember.
Yeah.
You really remember. Someone tweeted, this is, I think, my favourite one of the day. Someone was in an even worse situation than I was at the 2-minute silence. They were at the London dungeons.
No. The London Dungeons, for those who don't know, is like, think of those horror mazes we talked about at Thorpe Park, but high budget in one place and well received.
London dungeons. For 2 minutes, we stood in reverent silence in a fake torture chamber. Someone was locked in a cage. It's what they would have wanted.
Why even bother doing a 2-minute silence in a torture chamber? That's only demeaning.
But that's the point, isn't it? Is that all of this stuff is so unfathomably incapable of doing even the smallest iota of the remembrance that it thinks that it is.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't think that it is. Like, it's all cynical, of course.
Someone will think that it is. Someone at IKEA, or not even IKEA. I don't mean to slander IKEA because I'm a big fan. Someone at Block Knives will have thought, this is a good thing we're doing. That person wasn't involved in the decision, I'm certain.
Yeah.
And that person's probably quite dumb, but well-meaning. What's sad, though, is that it's one of those difficult balances to strike where obviously now, because there's a whole a literal industry around remembrance and around selling like alternative ways to remember, like, oh, come and remember, what's it be like on a double-decker bus? Try remembering that. Come remember in our cafe. We'll do a 3-minute silence. Take that, troops. Because there's like literally money to be made out of it, and because we live in, this is such an old man thing to say, in the social media age of thoughts and prayers.
Yeah.
And that idea of commodified tragedy where you have to participate, like people who mark themselves as safe in tragedies that everyone knows you are nowhere fucking near.
Someone on my timeline who lives in South London marked themselves safe during the recent Californian wildfires.
That person should be erased.
Like, what possible genuine reason could you have for doing that? The answer is none. It's just such
a desperation to be part of tragedy. Well, yeah, it's a difficult balance in the sense that, yeah, of course we should always remember what happened, but that's true of, almost every major historical event ever.
There was a double thing this weekend during the football. One of the teams in the Premier League, Leicester City, their owner died last weekend in a helicopter crash. He and his pilot and a couple others took off from the pitch, as he did after every home game, and they instantly lost control of the aircraft, crashed into the car park and died. But their next home game was for the weekend of Remembrance Sunday. It was yesterday. So they had this like dual thing going on where they were having to do their Remembrance Sunday service or like their little bit for it, and also something for him. So they had like a 2-minute silence rather than a 1-minute silence that most of the football grounds did, one for each. In the first half, Leicester were wearing shirts with like a black armband and a little like thank you, whatever his name was, thing on. And then at half time, they swapped shirts to ones that had poppies embroidered on them because they couldn't possibly have played without that. And then at the 60th minute, was it the 60th minute? Because the guy was 60 when he died. They did the crowd did a minute's applause. And you're like, you can remember too much. Like, he only died last week. Like, we haven't forgotten.
It's a weird, like, self-delusional urge to be like, I will work hard to remember something. But if you are doing that, the people who are working the hardest to remember things like the war are the people who have devoted their lives to preventing future wars from taking place. Yeah. People who work for charities like Amnesty International who have thought, wow, war is fucking
the worst.
Abominable. And we need to not just buy a poppy once a year or recycle it and use it maybe once every 3.
Buy a badge and then you never have to buy one again.
Also a great idea, but maybe like do something proactive. But I feel like there's an insecurity, a national insecurity around memory, especially because we're at the cusp of, there must be like half a person left who is alive in World War One, tops. And when that person's dead and it's no longer living memory, like I think the UK, a country so self-defined by its participation in war, we'll have no idea what to do with ourselves. But I think we'll end up doing like 1,000-minute silence by the time I'm 60.
But I think as well that it's because somewhere underneath there, I truly believe that there is a realization in people that what you are doing and what you're being told to remember and how you're being told to think about it is bogus. Like, it is wrong. The focus should not be the Prime Minister laying a wreath at the cenotaph. That should be irrelevant. not only because of the overwhelming hypocrisy of someone who is currently involved in selling weapons to bomb other people to death, putting down a wreath and going, oh,
God, war's bad.
Lest we forget, but also that it is and always has been governments who have sent their people to just die.
Is it the rich people traditionally?
There's
Some of them.
You can't say correlation and causation.
Yeah,
you can't
can
always
never draw
assume
conclusions from this.
but it is always that way round. Yeah,
spooky that it's always the working class.
and like the focus should be on. It's why I don't mind the fact that football clubs always have a. Like I do a big thing every season, like every ground will have a minute silence, is because, whole football teams, whole football, communities
just wiped out.
literally went as football community, like went as their local five-a-side team, signed up as their five-a-side team off to war to go and die. And so it's because it is an inherently working class thing, even though that's kind of changing, sadly. I don't mind that they do something every year, but the focus should be on more things like that, kind of community-based, and trying to actually remember specifically that people were made to just go and die. Like, it wasn't that's why I don't.
It wasn't like it's an accident. Like,
No.
remember that time that millions of people wiped out.
It's why I hate even, and it sounds bad to say it, but it's why I hate the use of the word brave about it, because it wasn't bravery in the sense that it's peddled. It wasn't let's go and do this. It was you had to go. Like, you didn't have a choice. You were mostly probably shitting your pants, knowing that you weren't coming back. You went out there. You probably, as we said, didn't even fight. You probably either just drowned in the mud, died of a disease, or were made to walk into a bullet.
Or shot for desertion or something.
Yeah, it's not a bravery in the sense that it's sold as these people they went and fought for king and country. They fought for our freedom. They didn't. They were sent out into the mud to die under the guise of fighting for our freedom.
Yeah, it's a commodified version of the narrative, for sure, that is inherently disrespectful to anyone who did die. And it was I suppose, well displayed by, what's that name? There's an old guy on Twitter who's called the real Harry something.
Leslie something.
Yeah, something. Yeah. It's an old man name. You'd know if you saw it.
Yeah.
He tweeted some criticism of Remembrance and about how it's co-opted. And some guy replied back you need to learn your history, mate. These lads fucking went overboard, died for your right to say that. And he just replied with a picture of his RAF uniform in World War II and was like, I know. Anyone of that generation that you talk to, even if it's a flippant conversation, or even if it's Stuart Lee in that Pear Cider stand-up talking about the firebombing Dresden, the allusion to the fact that it was anything to be celebrated, even in the sense of the bravery, they know that it wasn't born of any positivity of here we go, lads, we're gonna go and fight the good fight. The old people in my life just flat out refuse to talk about anything. It's just a terrifying, horrible, scarring, traumatic hellscape of an experience that it does no one any favours apart from anyone who would conveniently benefit financially, politically from a narrative of good old Britain, Dunkirk spirit and all that peddle.
Well, and my girlfriend was saying that she listened to a podcast recently where they had a guy who is an ex-soldier, who was a veteran, on talking more recent, not of the World Wars, and was saying that it's a very open fact among people in the military that this was a deliberate plan in terms of the process of instilling this idea of remembrance. as to say, yeah, it was brave. Yes, they went and fought and died for us. Yeah, well done them. Like, it was great. What a great sacrifice. Because they knew that if the actual process of remembrance was, hey, the king said you had to go, and no matter what you believed, the king said so, you went and died, you'd never get another person to sign up for the army ever again.
Once.
And so you changed the narrative to, it was a bold and noble thing, like, we went and did a great job, like
it's a job that's essential. It's British through and through. Yeah, it's always the way we would have done it.
And things were definitely a lot better because we did it. Definitely. And it 100%. Had to be done.
And it was the war to end all wars.
Well, yeah, there wasn't another one
ever. The policing of like correct remembrance as well. Whenever you see these outbreaks, usually from the right.
No.
It's just a correlation I've noted of people getting furiously angry about something small, which in this case can be Jeremy Corbyn not bending enough.
Well, the poppy leaf should be pointing to
the
11.
Poppy leaf, the size of the poppy.
Yeah.
We've had literally like this, to American audiences might sound absurd, but probably a few million words over the last year printed about the size of poppies, the correct orientation of poppies, the where you should buy your poppy from. Look out, some people who might not be officially associated with the British Legion are selling poppies. Don't buy from those guys, even though, guess what? They're all homeless people.
No, you
Fuck
wouldn't
them.
believe it.
That's what the troops would have wanted. Fuck the homeless.
But there are no homeless veterans, so they wouldn't have been
There's
thinking,
no overlap there.
Because, you know, they've done such a good job that the state officially recognises that and looks after them.
Yeah. But the correlation or the relationship between these massive outbursts at small things and the clear way in which it masks a very fundamental insecurity is always good to see. It's like when people go mad at Russell Brand for saying almost anything because they're like, oh, you can't say that. Why aren't you letting refugees live in your bedroom, mate? It's like, well, it's not quite the point. The fact that you're getting so angry about it is very revealing as to an essential understanding of unfairness.
It's an amazing kind of blind spot, you know, one of several that we've discussed that, you know, the argument always comes up when we have this discussion about refugees or immigration, you know, and housing people who have nothing. Is, you know, well, what about our vets? Like, there are homeless veterans. We should give them homes like first. And you're like, well, yeah, they should have homes as well. But it's not us who's saying they shouldn't have them. We're saying they should. You're saying they should. You're the person who's voting for the people who say that they shouldn't have a house. And not only that, but you think that party loves those veterans. You think they love the people, but they don't. They couldn't care less about the individual people there in any sense. It is to them an army. It's a business. It's just a machine that they send out, and it doesn't matter who's in it. It's amazing how, like, very, very quickly and efficiently the military as an idea managed to ingratiate itself into the idea of remembrance, because it is very disingenuous, because the majority of people, by a disproportionately huge number who died, were not soldiers, right? The size of your army was so pathetic compared to the number of people who you eventually had to send that it isn't a military thing to remember. And to bring them into it is, again, just part of that disservice, part of that altered narrative that these were soldiers who went to fight, rather than they were people that you chucked into the cheapest uniform you could find, made them march through the street that almost certainly didn't work, with not enough food, not enough clothes,
and
not
more than enough cholera,
no training, but more rats than you could shake your fucking mouldy feet at.
Yes. Well, lest we forget, we've reached the end of the show, I think. Should we
say something more upbeat?
Well, I don't think there is anything upbeat. I think on Remembrance Day, I've felt this from a very young age, and I'm not saying it's because I'm better than all of you, but if you want to think that, then that's fine. Whenever I'm I have a really strong memory of it in primary school, having the minute's silence or 2 minutes or 3, whatever the fuck it was. And it used to really stress me out because it would invariably, we'd be doing like a week on the war that week. There'd be activities. The assembly would be in some Wilfred Owen.
Yeah.
And you'd look at some horrific images. Yeah. It'd be like, oh, this young kid who looks like he could basically be in your year, shot in the head. What a shame. Unpreventable. And then you go into your class and they're like, right, we're going to watch the clock. And I remember like seconds ticking up and they're like, right, remember. And you're like, okay, so you're sitting there. And it used to really stress me out to be like, it's quite a Catholic thing as well, I think. This idea of like, well,
the guilt.
Am I remembering enough? Am I remembering the right bits? Oh, fuck, I just thought about football for a minute. Shit, I better pull it back with 20 seconds of really hard aneurysm-inducing remembrance. And I think
I'm going to make up stuff that was even more horrible than what happened just to make sure.
And I think it's just patently the wrong way to deal with it in so many levels because it's such a personal tragedy. People were affected, like whole families. Most families in the UK have a story of like someone who died, some cousin or granddad.
You know, every village lost so many of its people.
Yeah. There are signs like you can't go anywhere without seeing in the middle of a roundabout in some little hot fuzz village, like hundreds of names of people. And to kind of reduce it to a state sanctioned, we're going to sit here. You're going to have your little dose of remembering. I'm going to go and lay a wreath, forgetting, as you mentioned, the atrocities that I'm going to go back and commit any minute now.
10 minutes.
To turn it into that kind of charade is just so far away from an always inevitably imperfect manifestation of how we deal with that as a society anyway. But it's just really shit.
Well, yeah, because as we said, like it's designed to make sure that you don't actually think about it and process it. You say, here's your 2 minutes remembrance, sit there and feel sad and don't think about it at all again until next year.
Even once. So yeah, I don't think there's anything too upbeat to end on. Because it's just sad.
I was going to change subject completely because...
Back to the robots?
I was going to tell my little story about my friend who wrote a story.
Oh, go on, do that.
Because it's a nicer way to end.
Let's remember that together.
Yeah. It's been a while since we spoke about tutoring.
Yes.
And I set one of my new tutees.
Who you call a little friend, it seems.
Yeah.
That's an interesting approach.
He is retaking his English language GCSE. And that examination involves a piece of creative writing. Mm-hmm. So we're working on the creative writing because he was frankly shite at it. And I, a couple of weeks ago, set him the task of writing a short story. And it was actually quite good. Like, I enjoyed it. Like, it was under time conditions. Obviously, it's not a whole story, just the start of a story. Yeah. And it was quite good. And so we spent the lesson talking about how to make things even better, what you can do. And I set him another one under time conditions to do. And as I was telling you just before we started recording, I went round and he was like, I kind of thought you'd be late. It was the first time ever that I've been on time. And he was like, so I haven't quite finished. So I let him finish it. And it was functionally the least story you could ever, and I didn't realize it until it was done. And I wrote interesting circularity. And then I crossed out and went, it's not circularity. You just didn't go anywhere. Like we're just still at exactly the same point we were at the start. The title prompt that I gave him was My Lunch with Ruby. Mm-hmm. Ruby appeared for...
My dinner with Andre.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I said, yeah. Ruby, his character Ruby appeared for 2 lines of dialogue.
Interesting.
One of which was, my name is Ruby.
Nice.
And
economical.
It was some story about like some guy who was going for an interview. Ruby was doing the interview and he was really nervous. And that was it. That was it.
Suspense.
And I said to him, I said, what's the job? And he went, I don't know. I went, well, what's the company? And I don't know. I went, why is he so nervous? Like, does he really need this job? And he was, again, I don't really know.
You've got me there, officer.
So I was like, well, I feel like we're getting to the core of why none of your characters seem at all fleshed out. And it's because none of them has any motives, because they're literally just words that you happen to spit onto the page. But it had some like quite nice bits of writing, some quite nice bits of phrasing, but it also had some real shames lodged in there. One of the only defining characteristics of the character Ruby was that she had, and I quote, crusty hands.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Which, when I made him do this task where I was like, look, here's your two characters. Just tell me who they are. Right? Like in their little table here, who they are, what. And he picked up the crusty hands thing and just said, she has crusty hands because of an infection.
Oh.
And that was it. That was all the specificity there was.
An infection on both hands.
Yeah. That specifically stopped at the wrist.
That's
and
interesting.
its only
Like
symptom was
Dumbledore's
crust. One of the pitfalls of student writing always is this mistaking of overly functional writing for good imagery, right? Where they mistake the fact that imagery is about trying to convey a feeling, like a sense of something to someone, and instead just describing a very basic function, but in the most prescriptive instruction manual way possible. So, we have this in those bad 2-sentence horror stories where you're like, his leg, his foot came away from its comfy leg placement at the knee joint.
Yeah.
And his story opened with the phrase, as the water leaked from my eyes. And I was like, what do you, I was like, why would you, the one thing I always tell people is like, never write something that you wouldn't say. And I was like, would you ever say, oh, that film, it was so sad. I was leaking all sorts of water from my eyes. He'd done it like again later with another phrase, I think about crying again. And it was, as the salt water, drippled from my eye. But, I think my favorite moment in the whole story, and it properly tickled me. It was just such a glorious piece of phrasing where I know what he means. I know exactly what he means. And yet the sentence means nothing. And it's as poorly written as possible. His character had been for this interview and he got so nervous he had to go out for a break, and she'd let him have a break.
Crusty hands put him on edge.
Yeah, he was like, I can't stay in here forever. I'm going to have to go back in the room. So he goes back in the room and he said, and I walked back in the room and she was clearly very annoyed, as was made obvious by her eyebrows.
Oh no! So tell.
What do you
How
mean?
annoyed
She's
eyebrows.
got obvious eyebrows.
How obvious and annoyed eyebrows. Maybe in its own way, though, that's the greatest remembrance of all. This has been That's a Shame, episode 117. You can find us on Twitter at That's a Shamecast, where we, I suppose, will be accepting all the torrents of abuse at our correct opinions.
If you would like to donate to us, we pass 0% of that on to
help the heroes.
Any help the heroes. But patreon.com/shamecity, of course. There should be some bonus content going up there.
Sure will. We've got an unedited hour of troop bashing. From the Greeks to the Gauls.
Right up to the modern day. What else? Reviews, if you'd like to tell the world.
Yeah.
If you want to help us become the 71st funniest podcast in more than one country.
Preferably another African nation, because I think let's consolidate our base there.
Yeah.
And then, in fact, let's just leave it there.
Although, that's not too close to colonizing, is it? I don't want to be...
No, I don't think so, because I think we're very much a tool, an intellectual tool that other people use to stimulate their own thought. Right. Like a kind of vibrator for the mind.
I'm glad that you turned it sexual because it was sounding very white man's bird for a minute.
Absolutely not.
This is just a tool that we
It's
give
just
to them.
It's the train. For God's sake, man, enjoy the train.
They were walking everywhere before the podcast turned up.
Yeah, no, none of that.
Okay,
we're not trying to.
no.
We're not an imperialist podcast by any means.
I think that, if nothing else, should be clear from the last hour and a half.
But I support our, groundswell of listenership, really, and interest wherever it may take us next.
Until next time,
I've been Isaac. You've been.
I've been Declan.
God bless America.
Look for the bare necessities, the simple bare necessities. Forget about your worries and your strife. I mean the bare necessities, oh Mother Nature's recipes that bring the bare necessities of life. Wherever I wander, wherever I roam, I couldn't be fonder of my big home. The bees are buzzing in the tree to make some honey just for me. The bare necessities of life will come to you. For the bare necessities, the simple bare necessities. Forget about your worries and your strife. I mean the bare necessities, oh Mother Nature's recipes that bring the bare necessities of life. Wherever I wander, wherever I roam, I couldn't be fonder, my new home. The bees are buzzing in the tree to make some honey just for me. The bare necessities of life will come to you.